Good morning, Les.
Good morning,
I
David.
was going to jump in and get it done and just say good morning.
That's good.
So, welcome to Dynamic Healing Moments with Les Arian and myself, David Hanscom. And we have been looking at the way the human organism processes stresses and whether your body's chemical state is in safety or threat. And when you're in ongoing threat, you don't feel very good. You're agitated, you're hyperactive, you can't relax, and you're agitated. And the word humans use is the word anxiety. So it seems to be an epidemic problem these days, but one of the causes of anxiety is the nervous system itself being hyperactive. So Les and I are going to talk about this a little bit differently today in that most of you have heard about what's called adverse childhood experiences, and I put a link on the Facebook today to actually take a little test on it. If you have an abusive, chaotic background, things in your childhood were not safe. So as an adult, your brain reads the environment the same way. This very second is dictated my entire prior life about what was safe versus wasn't safe. And when I was a kid, I actually wasn't safe. So a lot of things now that you might think is no big deal to me, I get hyperactive. There's certain tones of voice that set me off. So I'm hyper vigilant, much better than I used to be. So we want to talk about another type of situation that creates a nervous system that's hyperactive, and that's unmet expectations, which seems to be an epidemic problem these days. Is that was one of my issues, that I had high level expectations. And what your parents are really saying, I'm going to be blunt here, is that if your expectations are high and you get a B instead of an A, it's a backhand way of being criticized. And then, or when you're held up on a pedestal, well, David did this, David did this, David did this. It's the same thing as, well, your self-worth is dependent on this accomplishment thing. And it's still as damaging as having a chaotic childhood, just as damaging to your nervous system because you
Yeah,
can't meet his expectations. It's endless.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. David, I think it'd be good to kind of maybe explain, I'd be happy to explain the ACE study or the ACE categories. I think it'd be more helpful. As David said, there's a questionnaire attached to with the link. If you just pause for a second, adverse childhood experience, they've studied this by Dr. Folletti at Kaiser and CDC collaborated. They came up with 10 categories. I'm just going to group it into 3 categories. So within these 3, there are a total of 10 adverse childhood experiences that they've studied. So for example, one category is abuse, and abuse is basically physical, emotional, and sexual. The second category is called neglect, which is basically physical and emotional needs. Whoa, wait a minute. We're getting somewhere. Now, the third category is called household dysfunction. What the heck is that? Well, that's like basically when someone has a mental illness. That includes alcoholism, bipolar, schizophrenia, just some sort of mental illness that's not really well treated. Or sometimes maybe you grew up with a household where someone was constantly sick, but meaning specifically like they were very depressed and in bed and they weren't getting proper treatment. So mental illness is the third category. And within the household dysfunction, there's mental illness, there's violence at home, there's incarceration, there's substance abuse. And then there's one thing here that most of us have in 50% of the United States is divorce. Divorce is also looked at. So that's why all of us have at least one ACE scores. So with that said, I'm going to come back to what David said about expectations. If you just pause for a second, and we have studied that ACE scores, if you have 3 plus, again, take a look at it, 3 plus, it's been associated with certain comorbidity of medical conditions, such as cardiac, cancer, diabetes. That's right, I did say cancer, cardiac, diabetes. Who smokes, who has poorer health, who has obesity. So what is this all about? We're realizing that your nervous system gets recalibrated at a very young age. And as we go through life, your nervous system changes to adapt. Now, coming back to what David said, often is what's missing from this category, that David and I do agree on this, is that when we have ridiculous expectations or when you're placed to be the superstar in the family, as David and I were placed, and what happens, right,
Right.
David? So one of the things that
Well, you
happens
turned out to be
is,
a freaking guru.
yeah,
How did that happen? Your parents put you on that pedestal? That's
yeah,
a great.
my mom's posting stuff on Facebook, so it's endless. So thanks, Mom. So one of the things is it's not so much wrong with expectations, but when the expectations are ridiculous to be inhuman, what happens is eventually when you cannot meet those expectations, eventually because I've been doing this for 18 years, eventually there's something that breaks down, and often it's chronic pain and or depression and or anxiety. And when I see these professionals, individuals like you, what's really interesting is this is they tell me that I felt like I've been asleep all my life, and
Right.
realize that what they're doing, the relationship they're in, the job they're in, they realize that the pain has woken them up to what am I doing? And then they have all these memories to work through. So this is why David and I are spending some time is it's not so much that the ACE is bad. We're just trying to highlight a couple of things. One, that your nervous system changes. And so that means, the likelihood when you have an accident, a car accident or slip and fall, or you cannot recover from surgery, your nervous system was already heightened.
Right.
And that injury basically raises it. And that's why it's very difficult to treat chronic pain, depression, and anxiety sometimes.
Right. Well, if you think about, again, we've talked about this metaphor that if you just picture a feral cat that's hyper alert all the time compared to a domestic cat,
Right.
if you were raised as a feral cat, taking care of yourself at a very young age, which I did, and many of you have, then you just don't calm down. You have to actually retrain your brain. And that's what
Yeah.
acceptance and commitment therapy does. It doesn't fix the past, but you start reconstructing a new nervous system. That's the same thing, again, with thoughts. We're looking at, you can't fix these thought patterns, but you can reconstruct them. So in the workshop, when you look about befriending your inner critics, it just hit me this morning as I was writing this up. Well, part of the inner critic comes from this unconscious need to prove that you may not be as good as you think you are. But the other thing is,
Yeah.
it's also programmed in right from the beginning. You're not good enough, not good enough. You got to do this, this, and this to have some self-worth. We've talked about the myth of self-esteem. So that voice is also programmed in your brain. Then you and I scored high on what, the taskmaster, perfectionistic,
Yeah.
and what was the other one?
Remember, inner controller. So
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was out of control.
Don't change the categories, David.
Anyway, there's an inner critic questionnaire. And of course, as a surgeon, and Les has his issues, all of us have these voices. I mean, it's not just because we teach this stuff doesn't mean we're not in the trenches also. So I'm excited about the effects that these concepts have had on me personally. We've watched many people go through it and have similar results. So again, the workshop is really looking at these inner critics very carefully. And again, maybe you weren't abused as a child, but if your expectations of your parents were super high, now your expectations are super high, where's the end game? It's not there.
Yeah.
So you got to
Exactly.
understand, you have to separate from those obsessive thought patterns, then you can live your life. And so there's two parts. There's the separation part, which is just empirical tools. Then there's a creative part of actually reprogramming your life. So
Yep.
workshop is tomorrow. You can look at it on Dr. Aria's website, remedypain.co. Mine is thedocjourney.co. You can also go to the Open Center to sign up. We have a good attendance already. We're excited about it, and we're really, really looking forward to this. And the key word is anxiety is a big deal. And this whole process for me personally has gone from, quote, chronic pain really to anxiety, which does say danger. Pain says danger. Anxiety says danger. It's the same word. It's the same process. All right, so I get to say my part. Now you get to give us some last words of wisdom. Okay, so we have average childhood experiences, and we're actually adding one, right? We're actually adding unmet expectations as an average childhood experience. By the way, they didn't put bullying in that list, which is stunning to me, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yes, they should have put besides household, it should be, other environment. So you're right about that. So for that. So one of the last things that we want to say is this is at some point you need to recognize that when what you're doing is not working. So there's an old saying, as in the adage goes something like this: if you always do what you did, you always get what you got. If you always do what you did, you always get what you got. Meaning that if you're expecting a different outcome, you keep using the same tools.
Right.
And so there's no need. David and I are very big on this. There's no need. I call it unnecessary suffering. There's no need to create more chaos. You do require lifestyle change, but again, who are we to tell you not to suffer, right? We want you to really live the best life. And that's why David and I are doing this stuff. We don't do this for the fun of it. We do this because we have a passion and a heart's mission to help people suffer less. So come learn and acquire some skills and have fun. So
do I get to learn some skills too?
I get to learn some from you on how not to tell jokes.
Ooh, that's a parting blow. Everybody keeps telling me that. Maybe there's a consistency here. Maybe I need to listen.
Maybe you do need to listen.
That would be a start. All right. So see you tomorrow, and have a great day, and good to see you.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Bye, David.